All right, let's talk about Cisco ACI. We all know its security is top-notch, but what happens when that same powerful security creates a mountain of administrative work? Well, today we're diving into a feature designed to solve that exact problem, the Contract Preferred Group. Seriously, if you've ever found yourself lost in a web of contracts, this one's for you.
So, here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to unpack the challenge that ACI contracts can create, especially when you scale up. Then, we'll introduce preferred groups as a much simpler path forward. We'll walk through the super simple two-step configuration, peek under the hood to see what's actually changing in the hardware, and then wrap it all up with some crucial guidelines and takeaways. Okay, let's get into Section 1. Before we can really appreciate the solution, we have to understand the problem, right? So why do we even need something like a contract preferred group in the first place? Let's break it down.
I think many ACI admins out there will know this feeling. You start out with a few applications, things are great, but as your environment grows, so does the complexity. Before you know it, enabling even basic communication requires this massive number of contracts, and just keeping track of them all becomes a real headache.
This diagram here perfectly shows ACI's default security posture in action. It's what we call a zero trust or allow list model, which is absolutely excellent for security. The rule is simple: nothing can talk to anything else with an explicit contract. But just look at this web of connections. As you add more endpoint groups, or EPGs, which are just containers for your app endpoints, the complexity explodes. For a few EPGs, it's manageable. For hundreds, it can feel like a total nightmare.
So how do we fix this mess? Well, that brings us right to our main topic, preferred groups. This feature gives us a much simpler approach. It lets us ease up on the policy where it makes sense without having to throw our entire security posture out the window. And check this out. The visual transformation on this slide says it all. On the left, you've got that complicated web we were just talking about. But on the right, using a preferred group, we've created what we call a trusted zone. See how EPGs 1 through 4 can now just talk to each other freely? No contracts needed? The picture is so much cleaner. And importantly, the EPGs outside this zone, they still follow the strict contract-based rules.
So here's the formal definition, the key takeaway. A contract preferred group lets you selectively punch a hole in that super strict security model. It's not an all or nothing switch for your entire VRF, your routing instance. Instead, think of it as a tool to carve out a specific trusted zone for a group of EPGs, while everything else stays locked down tight. This really establishes the two states an EPG can be in once you turn this feature on. You can have included members, which gives them that free pass for contract-free communication with all the other included members, or you have excluded members, and this is the default, which means they operate under the normal, super secure model and need a contract to talk to literally anyone, whether they're included or not. Okay, let's get to the practical stuff. We're going to see just how ridiculously easy it is to configure this, and then we'll talk about a really powerful use case where this feature can be an absolute lifesaver, especially when you're doing migrations. You know, the best part about this feature is how simple it is. It's literally a two-step process. First, you flip the switch at the VRF level. Second, you just pick and choose which EPGs you want to add to your trusted zone. That's it. Let's see exactly what that looks like in the Apex GUI. And here's step 1. It all starts at the VRF. You just navigate to the policy properties for the VRF you're working in, and right there is the preferred group option. You just toggle it from its default state of disabled to enabled. Think of this as the master switch that turns on the capability for that whole routing domain. Next up, you just go to each individual EPG that you want inside this trusted zone. Remember, by default, every EPG is an exclude member. So to bring it in, you just pop into its properties and, just like it's highlighted here, you change its preferred group member status to include. You just rinse and repeat for every EPG you want in that open communication zone. So where is this most useful? Well, a classic example is making migrations way easier. Imagine you're moving a bunch of servers into a new ACI fabric. Instead of trying to build that huge, complex web of contracts on day one, you can just put them all into an included group. This lets you get everything connected and talking first. Then, in a second phase, you can carefully move each EPG back to excluded one by one and apply those granular, powerful security policies ACI is known for. It's a fantastic crawl, walk, run approach. Okay, let's go a layer deeper now. It's actually really important to understand what's happening under the hood.
because when you enable this feature, you are fundamentally changing the underlying security rules that get programmed into the hardware of your leaf switches.
In a normal ACI setup, without this feature turned on, if you were to look at the hardware zoning rules on a leaf switch, you would find this guy, Rule ID 4999. Its action is deny. This is the foundational implicit deny rule. It's always there, lurking in the background, and it's the very thing that makes ACI a zero-trust allow list fabric by default.
Now this right here is the most critical concept to get your head around. When you enable preferred group, the entire security posture of that VRF flips on its head. That default implicit deny rule, it gets swapped out for a default implicit permit rule. The fabric's default behavior goes from deny all to permit all.
And this comparison just illustrates that change perfectly. On the left, you've got the standard zoning rules. Focus on Rule ID 4099. The action is clearly deny log. Now look at the right side, with preferred group enabled. Same Rule ID 4099, but now the action is permit. This is that switch from default deny to default permit right there in black and white.
So you might be asking, if the default action is now permit, how in the world does ACI protect those excluded EPGs? Well, it's pretty clever. ACI automatically programs new, more specific deny rules for every single EPG that you've marked as excluded. You can see examples right there in the table. Rules like 4171 and 4151. This is how the fabric reestablishes that secure allow list model, but just for the EPGs outside of your trusted zone.
Okay, before you get excited and run off to implement this, there is one really crucial guideline you have to be aware of. This is especially important if you're planning on using this with an EPG that connects to the outside world, like your internet connection.
Here it is, the most important gotcha to remember. If you have an L3 out, that's your connection to an external network, and you put its EPG into the included group, you can't use a standard quad 0 default route. It just plain won't work. The official workaround, as you can see right here, is to use 2/1 subnets instead. It looks a little funny, but together, those two subnets cover the entire internet and achieve the same goal.
So what's the big takeaway here? Contract preferred groups give you a really valuable control knob. It's a pragmatic tool. It lets you balance that ideal of strict, zero-trust security for everything against the real-world need for operational simplicity. You can dial in full enforcement where it matters most and simplify your life where the risk is a bit lower.
And we'll just end with a final thought for you to take with you. Where in your own environment could this feature help you strike a better balance? How could creating these little trusted zones with less policy overhead help you roll out applications faster and just simplify your day-to-day operations? Something to think about.